The storm hit Wyoming Territory with a fury that matched the turmoil in Adam Jensen's chest as he rode his stallion through sheets of rain toward his isolated ranch near Marysville, wondering if this God-forsaken loneliness would ever end. Thunder cracked overhead like rifle shots, and lightning illuminated the darkness in brief, ghostly flashes. He pulled his hat lower against the driving rain, urging his horse faster toward home and warmth. It was late September 1882, and the weather had turned bitter and unpredictable. Through the downpour, something caught his eye. A figure stumbled along the muddy road, falling to their knees before struggling upright again. Adam pulled hard on the reins, squinting through the darkness. The figure collapsed entirely this time, not rising. Without thinking, he dismounted and ran toward the crumpled form, his boots splashing through puddles. It was a woman, he realized, her dress torn and muddy, her dark hair plastered to her face and neck. She was barely conscious, shivering violently. When lightning flashed again, he saw her face properly and felt his breath catch. 3 long scars ran down the left side of her face from temple to jaw, pale against her rain-soaked skin. Her eyes opened briefly, unfocused and dark with fear. "Please," she whispered through chattering teeth. "Please do not hurt me." "I am not going to hurt you," Adam said firmly, already shrugging out of his oilskin coat to wrap around her. "Can you stand?" She tried, but her legs buckled. Without hesitation, he lifted her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, and he could feel her bones through the wet fabric of her dress. She had been starving, he realized with anger. Whatever had happened to this woman, it had been bad. Getting her onto his horse while holding her upright proved challenging, but he managed it, climbing up behind her and cradling her against his chest. She had lost consciousness entirely now, her head lolling against his shoulder. He kicked his stallion into a gallop, praying he could get her warm and dry before she succumbed to exposure. The ranch house appeared through the rain like a beacon. Adam had built it himself over the past 5 years, a sturdy 2-story structure with a wide porch and strong walls. He had built it with the vague hope that someday he might have a family to fill it, but that dream had grown dimmer with each passing year of isolation. At 32, he had resigned himself to living alone with only his horses and cattle for company. He carried the woman inside, kicking the door shut behind him. The fire in the hearth had burned low, but embers still glowed. He laid her on the bearskin rug in front of the fireplace and quickly built up the flames. Then he ran upstairs for blankets and dry clothes, his mind racing. She needed to get out of those wet things immediately. Adam hesitated, propriety warring with necessity. Necessity won. He turned his back and worked as clinically as possible, removing her sodden dress and undergarments, trying not to see too much. His hands trembled slightly. It had been years since he had been this close to a woman. More scars covered her body, he noticed with growing horror. Old bruises yellowed on her ribs. Rope burns circled her wrists. Someone had hurt her badly and repeatedly. Fury built in his chest, hot and righteous. He dressed her in one of his old shirts, which hung on her like a tent, and wrapped her in every blanket he owned. Then he sat beside her, monitoring her breathing as the fire crackled and the storm raged outside. Her face was gaunt, hollow-cheeked from hunger. But beneath the scars and starvation, he could see she was young, probably not yet 25, with delicate features and long lashes. She did not wake that night. Adam dozed in the chair beside her, jerking awake every time she stirred or made a sound. As dawn broke gray and wet through the windows, her eyes finally opened. They were green, he saw, the color of new grass. They fixed on him with instant terror. "Easy," he said softly, holding up both hands. "You are safe here. My name is Adam Jensen." I found you on the road last night during the storm. You were half dead from cold and exhaustion." She stared at him, her breathing rapid and shallow. Her gaze darted around the room, taking in the simple furnishings, the rifle above the mantel, the doors and windows. Calculating escape routes, he realized. "I am not going to hurt you," he repeated, keeping his voice gentle. "I promise, you are safe here." "Where am I?" Her voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. "My ranch, about 5 miles north of Marysville. We are in Wyoming Territory, if you did not know." "Wyoming," she repeated, as if testing the word. Something that might have been relief crossed her face. "How far from the Montana border?" "Maybe 30 miles." She closed her eyes and a single tear tracked down her scarred cheek. "Not far enough," she whispered. "Who hurt you?" Adam asked, though he knew it was too soon. "Who are you running from?" She opened her eyes and looked at him with such depth of pain that he felt it in his own chest. "A man who claimed to own me. A man who said I was his property to do with as he pleased." "No one owns you," Adam said fiercely. "Slavery ended nearly 20 years ago." "Not all chains are legal," she said bitterly. "My name is Margaret Burton. He was my husband." Was, she had said, past tense. "He is dead?" Adam asked carefully. "I do not know. I hope so." "I hit him with a fire poker when he came at me drunk 3 nights ago. There was so much blood. I ran and kept running. I stole a horse, but it threw me yesterday. I have been walking since then." Adam sat back, processing this. She had likely killed her husband in self-defense, but the law might not see it that way. A woman had few rights, and killing one's husband was murder in the eyes of most judges, regardless of provocation. "Are you going to turn me in?" Margaret asked, her voice flat. She had clearly given up hope. "No," Adam said simply, "but you need food and rest. When did you last eat?" "I do not remember. Days ago, maybe." He stood and went to the kitchen, returning with bread and butter and a cup of water. "Eat slowly. Your stomach will not take much at first." She sat up, wincing, and took the food with trembling hands. She ate like someone who expected the meal to be snatched away at any moment, quickly but carefully, savoring each bite. It broke his heart. "How did you get the scars?" he asked quietly. Her hand instinctively went to her face. "He did this the first time I tried to leave, 2 years ago. He caught me and used a hunting knife. Said he was marking me so no other man would ever want me, so I would know I belonged to him forever." "He was wrong," Adam said, and meant it. The scars did not make her ugly. If anything, they spoke of survival, of strength. "You are free now. You can stay here as long as you need." Suspicion darkened her eyes. "Why? What do you want from me?" "Nothing. Company, maybe. It gets lonely out here." "Men always want something." "I am not most men," Adam said. "And I know what it is like to be alone and desperate. When I was 20, I lost my whole family to cholera. Parents, 2 brothers, a sister. I wandered for years before I scraped together enough to buy this land and build something of my own. If someone had not helped me along the way, I would be dead. Consider this paying that kindness forward." Margaret studied him for a long moment, as if trying to determine if he was telling the truth. Finally, she nodded slightly. "Thank you. I will not stay long. Just until I can figure out where to go." "There is no rush," Adam assured her. "Rest now. We can talk more later." She lay back down, exhaustion overtaking her quickly. Within minutes, she was asleep again, her breathing deep and even. Adam watched her for a moment, then stood and went about his morning chores, his mind churning. He had taken in a fugitive, possibly a murderer, though he believed her story absolutely. If her husband had survived and came looking for her, there would be trouble. If the law came searching, there would be worse trouble. But Adam could not bring himself to regret his decision. Something about Margaret Burton called to him, stirred something in his chest that had been dormant for years. Over the following days, Margaret slowly recovered her strength. Adam gave her the spare bedroom upstairs and did not push her to talk. She was skittish as a wild horse, flinching at sudden movements, going silent and still whenever he came too close. But gradually, she began to relax. She insisted on helping around the house, and Adam did not argue. He sensed she needed to feel useful, needed to earn her keep. She cleaned and cooked, and he discovered she had a talent for both. The ranch house had never been so orderly, and the meals had never tasted so good. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" he asked one evening over a supper of roasted chicken and vegetables. "My mother," Margaret said softly. "Before she died when I was 16, she ran a boarding house in Denver. I helped her." "How did you end up married to a man like that?" Her face closed off. "I was young and stupid and alone. He seemed kind at first, charming. By the time I saw his real nature, it was too late. We were already married. How long? 5 years. 5 years of hell." She looked down at her plate. "He kept me isolated on his ranch in Montana. No neighbors for miles, no one to hear me scream." Adam felt rage build again, hot and fierce. "If he is alive and comes for you, he will have to go through me first." Margaret looked up, surprise in her green eyes. "Why would you risk yourself for me? You barely know me." "Because it is the right thing to do. Because no one should live in fear like you have. And because," he hesitated, then continued, "because I have been alone a long time and you have reminded me what it is like to have someone to care about." Color rose in her cheeks, visible even in the lamplight. "Adam, I cannot offer you anything. I am damaged goods, scarred, possibly wanted for murder. You deserve better." "You let me decide what I deserve," he said firmly. "And you are not damaged. You are a survivor. There is a difference." She shook her head but said nothing more. Yet something had shifted between them, some acknowledgement of growing feelings that could not be taken back. As October arrived and the aspen trees turned gold in the mountains, Margaret continued to heal, both physically and emotionally. She smiled more often, laughed at Adam's dry jokes, sang softly to herself while she worked. The fear in her eyes diminished day by day. Adam found himself falling in love with her, though he tried to fight it. It seemed wrong somehow, taking advantage of her vulnerability. But he could not help the way his heart lifted when she entered a room, or the way he looked forward to their evening conversations by the fire. One afternoon, he was working in the barn when she appeared in the doorway, silhouetted against the autumn sunlight. She wore a dress he had bought her in town, simple blue calico that matched her eyes. She had put on weight, and her face had filled out, revealing the true beauty beneath. "Adam, there is something I need to tell you," she said, her voice uncertain. He set down the bridle he had been mending. "What is it?" "I went into town today while you were checking the north pasture. I had to know if anyone was looking for me." His heart sank. "And the storekeeper had an old newspaper from Montana, 2 weeks old." She pulled a crumpled paper from her pocket. "Thomas is dead. It is official. They found his body a few days after I ran. The marshal ruled it self-defense after talking to the neighbors and the doctor who had treated my injuries before." Relief flooded through Adam so powerfully he had to sit down. "So you are free, truly free?" "Yes." Tears streamed down her face. "I am free. I do not have to run anymore. I do not have to hide." He stood and crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. She clung to him, sobbing, releasing years of pain and fear. He held her, stroking her hair, murmuring reassurances. "You are safe," he said. "You are free. And you can stay here as long as you want, forever if you want." She pulled back to look up at him, her face wet with tears. "Adam, you do not have to offer that. You have already done so much." "I am not offering out of obligation," he said, his heart pounding. "I am offering because I have fallen in love with you, Margaret. I think I started falling that first night when I found you in the storm. I know it is too soon, and you have been through hell, and you probably need time. but I want you to know how I feel. I want you to stay, not as a guest or someone I am helping, but as my partner, my wife if you will have me." Margaret stared at him, her green eyes wide with shock. "You love me, even with my scars, even knowing what I did, especially because of those things," Adam said fiercely. "You are the strongest, bravest person I know. Your scars prove you survived something that would have broken most people. And what you did to save your own life. There is no shame in that." "I love you too," she whispered, and his heart soared. "I did not think I could ever feel this way about anyone after Thomas. I thought he had killed that part of me. But you have been so kind, so patient. You have shown me what a good man looks like. I love you, Adam Jensen." He kissed her then, gentle and careful, giving her every opportunity to pull away. But she did not pull away. Instead, she kissed him back, her arms winding around his neck, and the kiss deepened. Years of loneliness fell away, replaced by hope and joy and love. They were married 2 weeks later by the circuit judge who came through Marysville. It was a simple ceremony in the ranch house parlor, with just the judge and his wife as witnesses. Margaret wore a green dress that brought out her eyes, and Adam wore his best suit, the one he had bought 5 years ago and never had occasion to wear. "Do you, Adam Jensen, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" the judge intoned. "I do," Adam said, looking into Margaret's eyes. "And do you, Margaret Burton, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do," she said, her voice strong and clear. "Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Wyoming, I pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss your bride." Adam kissed her sweetly, properly, aware of their audience. But the promise of deeper passion waited in her eyes. That night, after the judge and his wife had departed, Adam carried Margaret up the stairs to his bedroom, which was now their bedroom. She was nervous, he could tell, her body tense in his arms. "We do not have to do anything tonight," he said softly, setting her on her feet beside the bed. "We have all the time in the world." "I want to," she said, "but I am afraid. Thomas, he was never gentle. It always hurt." Rage at her dead husband flared again, but Adam pushed it down. This night was about love, not anger. "I promise I will be gentle, and if you want to stop at any time, we stop. You are in control here, Margaret." She nodded, and slowly, carefully, they undressed each other. When she stood before him in only her chemise, scars visible on her pale skin, he took her hands. "You are beautiful," he said. "Every part of you. Even the broken parts. You are not broken. You are healed and healing. There is a difference." He kissed her then, deeply, and lowered her to the bed. He took his time, exploring her body with hands and mouth, learning what made her sigh with pleasure, what made her tense. When she finally relaxed completely, trusting him, he made love to her slowly and tenderly, showing her with his body what his words had already declared. Afterward, she cried again, but these were different tears. "I did not know it could be like that," she whispered against his chest. "I did not know it could feel good and safe at the same time. That is what it is supposed to be like between two people who love each other," Adam said, stroking her hair. "That is what it will always be like between us." Winter came early that year, blanketing the ranch in snow by mid-November. But the house was warm and filled with love. Margaret thrived in her new life, gaining weight and color, her eyes bright with happiness. The haunted look gradually faded from her face, replaced by peace. She had a gift with the horses, Adam discovered. They trusted her in a way they trusted few people. She could gentle even the most skittish animal, speaking to them in a low, soothing voice. "You understand them," Adam observed one afternoon, watching her work with a young mare that had been abused by her previous owner. "I understand what it is like to be frightened and hurt," Margaret said simply. "I understand what it is like to need someone to be patient and kind." By Christmas, The ranch felt like a true home. Margaret decorated with pine boughs and holly berries, filling the house with the scent of evergreen. She baked cookies and pies, and they invited their few neighbors for Christmas dinner. It was the first time Adam had entertained in his home, and it felt right, seeing Margaret laughing and talking with the other women, seeing the ranch house full of life and warmth. "You have done well for yourself, Jensen," old Pete McAllister said, pulling Adam aside. Pete ran the neighboring ranch 10 miles to the south. "That is a fine woman you married. Lucky man." "I know it," Adam said, watching Margaret across the room. "Luckiest man alive." As the guests departed and they cleaned up together, Margaret turned to him with a soft smile. "Thank you for today. I have not felt this happy since before my mother died." "You deserve to be happy," Adam said, pulling her close. "Every day for the rest of your life." Winter deepened, and they settled into comfortable routines. Adam tended the cattle and horses, making sure they had enough feed to survive the brutal cold. Margaret managed the house and helped with the animals when she could. In the evenings, they sat by the fire, reading or talking or simply being together. One night in late January, as a blizzard howled outside, Margaret put down her mending and looked at him seriously. "Adam, there is something I need to tell you." His heart clenched. "What is it?" "I am pregnant." "About 2 months along, I think." Joy exploded through him. "Truly, we are going to have a baby." "Yes," she smiled, but worry shadowed her eyes. "Are you happy? I know we have not been married long." "Happy," he laughed and scooped her into his arms, spinning her around. "I am thrilled." "Margaret, this is wonderful news." She laughed too, the worry fading. "I was afraid you might think it was too soon." "There is no such thing as too soon for good news," he said, setting her down carefully. "When? Late summer, I think. August, maybe." He placed his hand gently on her still, flat belly, wonder filling him. "Our child, growing right here. Are you hoping for a boy or a girl? I do not care, as long as both of you are healthy." He kissed her forehead. "Though a boy would be nice, someone to help with the ranch eventually." "Or a girl who can do the same," Margaret said with a smile. "Do not assume daughters are useless, Adam Jensen." "I would never," he said, grinning. "Any child of ours will be capable of anything." The pregnancy was not easy. Margaret suffered from terrible sickness the first few months, barely able to keep anything down. Adam worried constantly, but she assured him it was normal. As winter gave way to spring, the sickness eased and she began to show, her belly rounding beneath her dresses. She glowed with happiness, and Adam fell more in love with her every day. He found himself constantly amazed that this was his life now. A year ago, he had been alone and resigned to loneliness. Now he had a wife he adored and a baby on the way. It seemed like a miracle. In May, a stranger rode up to the ranch. Adam was working in the corral when he saw the man approaching, and instinct made him tense. He grabbed his rifle and went to meet the visitor, positioning himself between the man and the house. "Help you?" Adam asked, his tone not entirely friendly. The stranger was middle-aged, with gray in his dark beard and tired eyes. He wore a sheriff's badge from Montana. "I am looking for a woman named Margaret Burton. I was told she might be in this area." Adam's grip tightened on the rifle. "Why are you looking for her?" "I am Sheriff Carson from Silver Bow County. Her late husband's brother has been making noise about her killing Thomas Burton. He wants her brought back to Montana to face charges." "The marshal already ruled it self-defense," Adam said coldly. "There are no charges to face." "I know that and you know that, but Frank Burton is not satisfied. He has money and influence, and he has been pressuring me to investigate." The sheriff sighed. "Look, I am not here to cause trouble. I read the marshal's report. I talked to the doctor who treated her injuries. I know what kind of man Thomas Burton was, but I need to talk to her, get her statement, so I can close this officially and get Frank off my back." Adam studied the man, trying to determine if he was trustworthy. Finally, he lowered the rifle slightly. "Wait here." He went into the house, where Margaret was kneading bread dough. She looked up at his expression and went pale. "What is wrong?" "There is a sheriff from Montana outside. He wants to talk to you about Thomas. His brother is trying to cause trouble." Fear flashed across her face, but she squared her shoulders. "All right, let him in." "Are you sure? I have nothing to hide. I defended myself, and the law already said I did nothing wrong." She wiped flour from her hands. "But stay with me, please." "Of course." Adam brought the sheriff inside. The man removed his hat and nodded respectfully to Margaret. "Mrs. Burton. Or is it Mrs. Jensen now?" "Mrs. Jensen," Margaret said firmly. "I am married to Adam now. Congratulations." The sheriff's gaze dropped to her pregnant belly, then quickly away. "Madam, I am sorry to intrude, but I need to ask you some questions about the night your first husband died." For the next hour, Margaret recounted everything that had happened that terrible night and the years of abuse that had led up to it. She showed him old scars, described specific incidents. The sheriff took notes and listened, his expression growing grimmer. "And you hit him with the fire poker in self-defense?" he asked. "Yes, he was choking me. I could not breathe. I thought he was going to kill me. The poker was the only thing I could reach." Her voice shook with remembered terror. "I hit him once and he fell. There was blood everywhere. I did not stay to see if he was still breathing. I just ran." The sheriff closed his notebook. "Madam, in my opinion, you did what you had to do to survive. The original marshal's ruling of self-defense stands. Frank Burton can complain all he wants, but there is no case here. You are free and clear." Relief flooded Margaret's face. "Thank you. One thing, though." The sheriff's expression turned serious. "Frank is not a good man like his brother. He might try to cause trouble on his own. You folks should be careful." "We will be," Adam said grimly. After the sheriff left, Margaret collapsed into a chair, shaking. Adam knelt beside her and took her hands. "It is over. You are safe." "What if Frank comes here? What if he tries to hurt us?" "Then he will regret it," Adam said with iron certainty. "I will not let anyone hurt you or our baby, I promise." But worry gnawed at him. If Frank Burton came seeking revenge, there could be violence. Adam was a good shot and capable of defending his home, but he was just one man. He began taking extra precautions, keeping weapons handy, watching the horizon for approaching riders. Margaret noticed his vigilance and tried to reassure him. "Frank is a coward at heart, like his brother was. I doubt he will actually come all this way. He just wanted to make noise and feel important." "Maybe," Adam said, "but I am not taking chances. Not with you and the baby." Summer arrived in full force, bringing scorching heat. Margaret grew larger and more uncomfortable, but she never complained. She continued to work around the house and with the animals, though Adam tried to get her to rest more. "I am pregnant, not an invalid," she said with exasperation when he fussed over her. "Women have been doing this since the beginning of time." "Not my woman carrying my child," he countered. "Let me worry." She smiled and kissed him. "All right, you can worry a little, but not too much." In late July, as Margaret's due date approached, Adam rode into Marysville to fetch the doctor, wanting him on standby. The town was busier than usual, full of cowboys and miners seeking entertainment and supplies. Adam was tying his horse outside the doctor's office when he overheard a conversation that made his blood run cold. "Yeah, Burton rode in yesterday asking questions about a woman named Margaret," one cowboy was saying to another. "Tall fellow with a mean look about him. Said she murdered his brother and he was here to get justice. The law going to help him. Marshall told him to get lost. Said the case was closed, but Burton said he did not need the law's help. He had his own kind of justice in mind." Adam's heart hammered as he hurried into the doctor's office. He explained the situation quickly. "Your wife needs to stay calm," Dr. Hoffman said, his weathered face concerned. "Stress is not good for her or the baby, especially this close to her time. Do you have somewhere safe you can take her? The ranch is the safest place I know. It is isolated and defensible." Adam's mind raced. "But I need to get back to her now." "Go. I will ride out tomorrow to check on her and be ready when the baby comes." Adam rode hard for home, pushing his horse faster than was wise. The sun was setting when he reached the ranch. Everything looked normal, peaceful. Margaret was sitting on the porch, snapping green beans, and she smiled when she saw him. "You are back earlier than I expected," she called. He dismounted quickly and climbed the porch steps. "We have a problem. Frank Burton is in town." Her smile vanished. The bowl of beans fell from her lap, scattering across the porch boards. "No, no, he cannot be. He is, and he is talking about getting justice for his brother." "Margaret, we need to be ready. If he comes here, when he comes here," she interrupted bitterly. "Frank does not make empty threats. If he came all this way, he means to finish it." That night they barely slept. Adam kept watch from the upstairs window, rifle across his lap. Margaret tried to rest but kept getting up, too anxious to lie still. "I should leave," she said suddenly, around midnight. "I should go away and lead him away from here. I will not let you get hurt because of me." "You are not going anywhere," Adam said firmly. "You are 9 months pregnant and could give birth any day, and I am not letting you out of my sight. We are in this together, Margaret. Whatever comes, we face it together." She crossed to him and buried her face against his shoulder. "I am so afraid, not for me but for you and the baby. If anything happens to either of you because of my past, nothing is going to happen," he promised, though he was not entirely sure he could keep that promise. "We are going to get through this, and then we are going to have our baby and we are going to live long, happy lives. I swear it." Morning came gray and overcast. Adam was outside doing the early chores when he spotted 3 riders approaching from the south. His gut clenched. This was it. He ran to the house. "Margaret, get upstairs into the bedroom and stay away from the windows. Lock the door and do not come out no matter what you hear." Her face was white but determined. "Adam, go, now, please." She nodded and hurried upstairs. Adam heard the lock click. He grabbed his rifle and took a position on the porch, his heart pounding but his hands steady. The 3 riders drew closer. The one in the lead was tall and broad-shouldered, with the same cruel set to his jaw that Thomas Burton had likely possessed. Frank Burton. The other 2 were clearly hired guns, hard-faced men with weapons prominent on their hips. They stopped 20 yards from the porch. Frank Burton's gaze swept over the ranch house with contempt. "You must be Adam Jensen," he called out. "The fool who married my brother's killer." "Your brother was an abuser who got what he deserved," Adam called back, his voice steady despite his racing pulse. "The law ruled its self-defense. There is nothing for you here. Ride on. The law can go to hell. My brother is dead and someone has to pay. He beat her for years. He scarred her face. He would have killed her eventually. She was defending herself. She was his wife. He had a right to discipline her as he saw fit." Rage flooded Adam, but he kept his voice controlled. "No man has the right to brutalize his wife. Now get off my land before I make you." Frank laughed, a cold sound. "You and what army? There is 3 of us and 1 of you. Hand over Margaret and we will leave you alive. Keep her and we will take her anyway and burn your ranch to the ground." "You will have to kill me first," Adam said flatly. "And I promise I will take at least 2 of you with me, maybe all 3 if I am lucky." For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Then Frank shrugged. "So be it. Boys, kill him. We will find the woman ourselves." The hired guns went for their weapons. Adam was faster. He fired twice in rapid succession, and both men fell from their horses, dead before they hit the ground. Frank Burton stared in shock, then grabbed for his own gun. Adam's third shot caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. He fell hard, his weapon flying from his hand. Adam worked the rifle's lever and kept it trained on Frank as he approached cautiously. The man was still alive, clutching his bleeding shoulder and cursing viciously. Adam kicked his gun away and stood over him. "You are going to leave here," Adam said coldly. "You are going to ride back to Montana, and you are never going to bother Margaret again. You are going to tell everyone that your brother got what he deserved, and his widow is living a good life far away from the likes of you. Understand? You shot me, you bastard," Frank snarled. "I could have killed you. I still might if you do not agree to my terms." Frank's eyes were full of hate, but he nodded jerkily. "Fine, fine, I will go. Just let me get on my horse." Adam helped him mount, keeping the rifle ready in case of tricks. But Frank Burton, whatever else he was not completely stupid. He knew when he was beaten. With one last venomous look, he turned his horse and rode away, hunched over his wounded shoulder. Adam watched until he disappeared from sight, then turned to deal with the bodies of the two hired guns. It was grim work, but necessary. He dragged them away from the house and buried them in a shallow grave far from the property. He would report it to the marshal as self-defense, which it was, but for now, he needed to make sure Margaret was all right. He climbed the porch steps and called up, "Margaret, it is safe now, you can come out." No answer. His heart clenched. "Margaret!" He took the stairs 3 at a time and pounded on the bedroom door. "Margaret, open up." "I cannot." Her voice came, strained and frightened. "Adam, the baby is coming." He broke the door open with his shoulder. Margaret was on the bed, her face pale and sweaty, one hand clutching her belly. Water soaked the sheets beneath her. "How long?" he demanded, rushing to her side. "It started right after you went outside." "The pains are close together," she gasped as another contraction hit. "Adam, I am scared." "I know, love, but you are going to be fine. You are strong." His mind raced. The doctor was supposed to come today, but it was still early morning. It would be hours before he arrived if he came at all. They were on their own. Over the next several hours, Adam did his best to help Margaret through labor. He had assisted with difficult animal births before, but this was different. This was the woman he loved, suffering, and he felt helpless. He held her hand, brought her water, encouraged her as the pains grew stronger and closer together. "You are doing so well," he told her as she gripped his hand hard enough to bruise. "So brave." "I do not feel brave," she gasped. "I feel like I am dying." "You are not dying. You are bringing our child into the world, the most natural thing there is." Late in the afternoon, when Margaret was exhausted and crying that she could not do this anymore, Dr. Hoffman finally arrived. He took one look at the situation and rolled up his sleeves. "Looks like I am right on time," he said calmly. "Let us bring this baby into the world." With the doctor's guidance and Adam's support, Margaret pushed through the final, agonizing contractions. As sunset painted the sky orange and gold, their son entered the world with a lusty cry. "A boy, doctor," Hoffman announced, placing the squalling infant on Margaret's chest. "A healthy, strong boy." Margaret sobbed with relief and joy, her arms wrapping around the baby. Adam, tears streaming down his own face, leaned over them both, touching his son's tiny hand with one finger. The baby grasped it instinctively, and Adam felt his heart expand with a love so fierce it almost hurt. "He is perfect," Margaret whispered. "Adam, he is perfect." "Like his mother," Adam said, kissing her forehead. "You did so well, love. I am so proud of you." After the doctor cleaned up and made sure both mother and baby were doing well, he left with instructions for care. Adam sat beside the bed, unable to look away from his family, his wife and son, his family. "What should we name him?" Margaret asked, stroking the baby's dark hair. "I was thinking about my father's name," Adam said. "Michael, what do you think, Michael Jensen?" Margaret said softly, testing it. "I like it." "Hello, Michael. Welcome to the world." The baby yawned, already falling asleep, content in his mother's arms. Over the following weeks, life settled into a new rhythm. Michael proved to be a good baby, healthy and hungry. Margaret recovered her strength quickly, and Adam helped with everything he could. He changed diapers, walked the floor with Michael when he fussed at night, and fell more in love with both his wife and son every day. One evening, as autumn began to color the trees again, Adam sat on the porch watching the sunset. Margaret came out and settled beside him, Michael asleep in her arms. "I have been thinking," she said quietly. "About what?" "About how different my life is now compared to a year ago, how much has changed." She looked at him, her green eyes soft. "A year ago, I was trapped in hell, thinking I would either die or kill myself to escape. Now I am sitting here with a husband I love and a beautiful baby, watching the sunset on our ranch. It does not seem real sometimes." "It is real," Adam assured her, putting his arm around her shoulders. "This is your life now, our life. I never thanked you properly," she said, "for taking me in that night, for giving me shelter when I had nothing, for loving me despite everything." "You have thanked me every day just by being here," Adam said. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Margaret. You and Michael. Before you came, I was just existing. Now I am living." She leaned her head on his shoulder, and they sat in comfortable silence as the sun dipped below the horizon. Inside the house, the lamplight glowed warm and golden. Their horses whinnied in the corral. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. "You think Frank will really stay away?" Margaret asked eventually. "I think he learned his lesson, but if he comes back, we will deal with it." Adam tightened his arm around her. "I will always protect you and Michael. That is a promise." "I know. That is why I feel safe for the first time in years." The marshal did come eventually, investigating the deaths of the two hired guns. But Pete McAllister and several other neighbors testified that they had seen 3 armed men heading toward the Jensen ranch and had heard gunshots. The marshal ruled it a clear case of self-defense against attempted murder, and that was the end of it. If Frank Burton was questioned in Montana, he must have stuck to his agreement to leave them alone, because they never heard from him or about him again. As the years passed, the ranch prospered. Adam expanded the herd and built new outbuildings. Margaret's skill with horses became known throughout the county, and people began bringing their most difficult animals to her for training. She had a gift, everyone agreed, a way of understanding what the creatures needed. Michael grew into a bright, energetic boy with his mother's green eyes and his father's dark hair. He followed Adam everywhere, learning the ranch from the time he could walk, and he was not alone for long. When he was 2, Margaret gave birth to a daughter they named Grace. 3 years later, another son arrived whom they called Daniel. The ranch house that had once echoed with loneliness now rang with children's laughter. Margaret filled it with love and warmth, making it a true home. Neighbors visited often, and the Jensens became pillars of the growing community around Marysville. Sometimes, on quiet evenings after the children were asleep, Adam and Margaret would sit on the porch and remember that stormy night when they had first met. It seemed like a lifetime ago, though only a handful of years had actually passed. "You ever regret it?" Adam asked once. "Taking a chance on me, staying here instead of moving on?" "Not for a single second," Margaret said firmly. "You saved my life in every way that matters. You gave me a home, a family, a reason to keep living. How could I ever regret that? I feel the same way about you. You saved me too, from loneliness and emptiness. You gave me purpose." She smiled and took his hand. "We saved each other then." That is how it is supposed to work, I think. Two broken people becoming whole together. "We were never broken," Adam corrected gently. "Just incomplete, and now we are complete." As Michael grew older, he asked about the scars on his mother's face. Margaret did not hide the truth from him, though she softened it for his young ears. She explained that she had been hurt by a bad man a long time ago before she met his father, but that his father had helped her escape and they had fallen in love. "Did the bad man come back?" Michael asked, his eyes wide. "He tried once," Margaret admitted, "but your father protected us. He is very brave." "I am going to be brave like Papa when I grow up," Michael declared. "I know you will," Margaret said, hugging him close, "but being brave does not mean you are never scared. It means you do the right thing even when you are scared. Like you did when you ran away from the bad man. Exactly like that." As the children grew, the ranch expanded further. Adam hired help to manage the growing herd, and Margaret's horse training business brought in steady additional income. They were prosperous by Wyoming Territory standards, though they never forgot the hard times that had brought them together. When Wyoming became a state in 1890, there was celebration throughout the territory. The Jensens hosted a party at their ranch, inviting everyone from miles around. As Adam watched his wife dancing with their children, surrounded by friends and neighbors, he felt a profound sense of gratitude for the life they had built together. That night, after the guests had departed and the children were tucked into bed, he and Margaret stood on the porch under the stars. She leaned against him, fitting perfectly against his side as she always had. "Happy?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Happier than I ever dreamed possible," she said. "Sometimes I still cannot believe this is my life." "Believe it. You earned it. You survived hell and came out the other side stronger." "We survived it," she corrected. "Together." He kissed her then, deep and loving, and she kissed him back with all the passion and tenderness that had grown between them over the years. After nearly a decade of marriage, they still desired each other as much as they had in the beginning. Perhaps even more because their love had deepened and matured. "Shall we go inside?" Margaret asked, her eyes sparkling with mischief and invitation. "I thought you would never ask," Adam said with a grin, sweeping her into his arms and carrying her over the threshold like he had on their wedding night. Their laughter echoed through the house, mingling with the peaceful sounds of their sleeping children and the night wind rustling through the trees outside. It was the sound of happiness, hard-won and deeply cherished. More years passed, bringing both joys and sorrows as all lives must. There were difficult winters when they lost livestock, and hot summers when water grew scarce. Margaret miscarried a fourth child and they grieved together. But they also celebrated Michael's graduation from school, Grace's first horse she trained all by herself, and Daniel's gift for woodworking that led him to build beautiful furniture. When Michael turned 18 in 1899, he announced his intention to start his own ranch on the far edge of their property. Adam helped him build a small house and gifted him cattle to start his herd. Watching his eldest son strike out on his own filled Adam with pride and a bittersweet sense of time's passage. "They grow up so fast," Margaret said, wiping tears from her eyes after Michael moved into his new home. "They do," Adam agreed, his arm around her waist, "but he is not far. And we still have Grace and Daniel for a few more years. I know, it is just hard to let go." "You never really let go. You just loosen your grip a little and trust that you raised them well enough to make good choices." Margaret looked up at him with the same love she had shown that first night he proposed. Despite the gray in her hair now and the lines around her eyes, she was still the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. The scars on her face had faded to thin white lines, part of her story but no longer defining her. "We did well, did we not?" she asked. "With our children, with the ranch, with our life, we did better than well. We built something strong and good from nothing but hope and hard work. And love. Do not forget the love." "Never," Adam said, kissing her forehead. "The love is what made it all possible." Grace married at 19, choosing a young rancher named William Morrison from the next county over. It was a beautiful wedding held at the ranch, with half of Wyoming Territory seemingly in attendance. Margaret cried happy tears as she watched her daughter pledge her life to a good man who clearly adored her. "Remember our wedding," she whispered to Adam as they watched the young couple dance. "Every detail," he whispered back. "Just us and the judge and his wife, simple and perfect. Do you wish we had done something bigger?" "Not for a second. That day was exactly what we needed." Daniel, always the quietest of their children, surprised them when he announced at 17 that he wanted to study architecture in Denver. It meant leaving the ranch, but Adam and Margaret encouraged him to follow his dreams. "The ranch will always be here," Adam told his youngest son. "But opportunities like this do not come often. Go, learn, become who you are meant to be." "But what about helping you and Ma?" Daniel protested. "Your mother and I managed this ranch alone for years before you children came along. We can manage it again. And Michael is right next door if we need help. Go with our blessing." So Daniel went to Denver, and suddenly the big house felt empty again. But it was a different kind of empty than the loneliness Adam had known before Margaret. This emptiness was simply the natural progression of life, children growing up and starting their own adventures. "It is just us again," Margaret said one evening, echoing his thoughts. "Just us," Adam agreed. "Like it was in the beginning. Are you sorry?" "Sorry, never. I am grateful for every moment, Margaret. The years with our children were wonderful, but I also love having you to myself again." She smiled and moved closer on the porch swing. "You old romantic, only for you." They had grown older gracefully together, their bodies marked by time and hard work, but their spirits still young. Adam's hair had gone mostly gray, and his joints ached on cold mornings. Margaret moved a little slower than she once had, and her hands sometimes trembled from years of hard work. But they were healthy and still deeply in love. The new century arrived, bringing changes to Wyoming and the West. The frontier was disappearing, replaced by towns and cities and railways. The wild, untamed land of their youth was becoming civilized. But the ranch remained a constant, a piece of the Old West preserved in their careful stewardship. Michael brought his own wife home to meet them, a sweet girl named Caroline from Cheyenne. They had a baby boy the following year, making Adam and Margaret grandparents for the first time. Holding his grandson, seeing his own dark eyes and Margaret's delicate hands, Adam felt the circle of life complete. "Your mother and I built this for you," he told baby Thomas, named after no one in particular, but carrying the weight of family legacy nonetheless. "This ranch, this family, this love, it is your inheritance, and someday you will pass it on to your own children." More grandchildren followed. Grace had 3 girls in quick succession. Daniel eventually married an architect he met in Denver and brought her home to meet the family. She was intelligent and kind, and Margaret loved her immediately. They had twin boys who kept everyone laughing with their antics. The ranch house, once so quiet, filled again with noise and life whenever the family gathered. Holidays became grand affairs with 3 generations crowded around the extended dining table. Adam would look around at all these people who existed because he had stopped to help a desperate woman on a stormy night, and the magnitude of that one decision overwhelmed him. "What are you thinking?" Margaret asked one Christmas, catching him looking pensive. That everything good in my life came from one moment of choosing kindness over caution. She understood immediately. That night you found me. That night I found you. If I had ridden past, if I had not stopped, none of this would exist. Our children, our grandchildren, all of this happiness. It all traces back to that one choice. And my choice to stay, Margaret added. I could have run again once I recovered. I almost did remember. I thought I was putting you in danger. I remember. I am glad you stayed. So am I. She looked around the crowded, noisy room with satisfaction. We made something beautiful together, Adam. Against all odds, we made something beautiful. As they aged into their 60s and then 70s, they gradually handed more responsibility to Michael and his growing family. Adam could no longer work full days in the saddle, and Margaret's hands hurt too much for extensive horse training. But they remained active, mentoring the younger generation, sharing their accumulated wisdom. They celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary in 1922, surrounded by children, grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren. It was a joyous occasion, though tinged with the awareness that their time was growing shorter. Adam was 72 now, Margaret 69. They had lived full, rich lives, but mortality was an undeniable reality. I am not ready to lose you, Margaret said that night as they prepared for bed. It was something they had started saying to each other more often lately, an acknowledgement of the inevitable. You are not going to lose me, Adam said, though they both knew it was a promise he might not be able to keep. Not really. I will always be with you in every memory in our children's faces, in the ranch we built together. I know, but I still want more time. I want forever. We have had a kind of forever. 40 years is more than many people get, and they have been the best 40 years of my life. Mine too. Every single day with you has been a gift. They lay down together, fitting into their familiar sleeping positions, his arm around her waist, her head on his chest. This was how they had slept for 4 decades, and neither could imagine any other way. I love you, Margaret whispered. Then, now, and always. I love you too, Adam replied. You are still the best thing that ever happened to me. Adam lived to see his 80th birthday in 1930, a remarkable age for a rancher who had worked hard all his life. Margaret, 6 years younger, remained in good health and spirits, though she worried constantly about him. His heart had grown weak, the doctor said, and he tired easily. He spent his final year sitting on the porch watching the ranch he had built continue to thrive under Michael's capable management. Margaret sat beside him every day, holding his hand, reminiscing about their life together. They talked about that first stormy night, their wedding, the births of their children, every important moment of their decades together. No regrets, Adam said one autumn afternoon, his voice weaker than it had once been but still certain. Not a single one. Nor I, Margaret said, though tears streaked her face. You gave me everything I never knew I needed. A home, a family, safety, love. You taught me I was worthy of good things. You were always worthy, I just helped you see it. He passed peacefully in his sleep that October, Margaret beside him to the end. She woke to find him gone, his face peaceful, a slight smile on his lips. The grief was crushing, but mixed with gratitude for the life they had shared. The funeral drew people from all over Wyoming. Adam Jensen had been respected and loved by everyone who knew him. But for Margaret, the loss was profound and personal. She had lost not just her husband, but her best friend, her protector, the other half of her soul. How do I go on without him? She asked Michael through her tears. The same way you went on after everything you survived before you met him, her son said gently. One day at a time, and you are not alone. You have us. Margaret lived another 7 years after Adam's death, remaining active and engaged with her family. She found comfort in her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, in the continuation of the legacy she and Adam had built. She still lived in the ranch house, refusing to move despite her children's concerns about her being alone. "This is where your father and I built our life," she said firmly. "This is where I want to spend my remaining days." She talked to Adam often as if he could hear her. Maybe he could. She told him about the grandchildren's accomplishments, the ranch's successes, the small dramas of family life. And she told him she missed him every single day. "Not long now," she would say, looking at his photograph on the mantel. "Soon I will see you again." Margaret Jensen passed away in her sleep in the spring of 1937 at the age of 84. Her family found her in the rocking chair by the window, her face peaceful, looking out over the ranch she had called home for 55 years. In her lap was the old newspaper clipping announcing her first husband's death and the marshal's ruling of self-defense. She had kept it all these years, not as a reminder of trauma, but as proof of survival. They buried her beside Adam on the hill overlooking the ranch, under a cottonwood tree they had planted together decades earlier. The headstones were simple but spoke volumes. Adam Jensen, 1850–1930. Beloved husband, father, grandfather. He chose kindness and found love. Margaret Burton Jensen, 1853–1937. Beloved wife, mother, grandmother. She survived the darkness and found the light. The ranch continued to thrive under the stewardship of their descendants, generation after generation. The story of how it began, with a lonely rancher who stopped to help a scarred woman on a stormy night, became family legend. It was told to children and grandchildren, a reminder that one act of kindness can change everything, that love can heal even the deepest wounds, that building something good and lasting is the finest legacy anyone can leave. And if sometimes, on stormy nights, ranch hands claimed to see two figures standing on the porch of the old house, holding hands and watching over the land they had loved, no one thought it was strange. Some loves, after all, are too strong to be ended by something as simple as death. Some loves echo through time, shaping generations yet unborn, a testament to the power of choosing compassion over fear, of taking a chance on someone who needs help. Adam and Margaret Jensen had taken those chances on each other, and in doing so, they had created something that would endure long after they were gone. Their love story was not just their own. It belonged to their children and grandchildren, to the ranch itself, to the very land they had worked and nurtured. It was a story of redemption and healing, of two wounded souls finding wholeness in each other. And it was, in the end, exactly what Adam had said it was, the best thing that ever happened to him. The scarred woman he had sheltered from the storm had become his reason for living, his partner in building a legacy, his great love. She had been broken when she arrived, fleeing horror and expecting nothing but more pain. Instead, she found a man who saw past her scars to the strength beneath, who loved her not despite her wounds but including them, recognizing them as proof of her courage. Together, they had built not just a ranch but a family, not just a house but a home, not just a life but a love story that would be remembered and retold for generations. The ranch still stands today, though much has changed since Adam and Margaret's time. But the values they instilled remain. Hard work, compassion, the belief that everyone deserves a second chance, and the understanding that sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as strangers in desperate need. Their descendants carry these lessons forward, living proof that one stormy night in 1882 changed not just two lives but countless others. And sometimes, when the storms roll across Wyoming and rain lashes the old ranch house, it is easy to imagine Adam riding through the darkness, Finding Margaret collapsed on that muddy road, making the choice that would define both their lives. It is easy to imagine their first meeting, the wariness giving way to trust, fear transforming into love. It is easy to imagine the life they built together, brick by brick, day by day, choice by choice. That is the power of their story. It reminds us that we are all just one decision away from changing our entire lives. One act of kindness, one moment of bravery, one choice to help instead of pass by can set in motion a chain of events that reverberates through time. Adam could not have known when he stopped to help that dying woman that he was choosing his future wife, the mother of his children, the love of his life. He simply knew someone needed help, and he had the means to provide it. Margaret could not have known when she accepted his shelter that she was choosing safety and love after years of abuse and fear. She simply knew she had nowhere else to go, and this stranger offered something she desperately needed: basic human kindness. Neither could have predicted the depth of love that would grow between them, or the family they would build, or the legacy they would leave. But that is how the best stories unfold, not with grand plans and detailed predictions, but with simple choices made from the heart. Stop to help. Stay one more day. Trust this person. Take this chance. Love despite the risk. Live fully despite the pain. Adam and Margaret made all those choices and more. They chose each other again and again every day of their marriage. They chose to build something lasting. They chose to love deeply despite knowing that love makes us vulnerable to loss. They chose hope over despair, action over resignation, together over alone. And in making those choices, they created something beautiful that outlasted both of them. The lonely rancher who gave shelter to a scarred woman found that she became not just the best thing that happened to him, but the beginning of everything good in his life. The scarred woman who accepted shelter from a lonely rancher found that he became her salvation, her second chance, her proof that good men existed and real love was possible. Their story is a testament to resilience, to the healing power of love, to the possibility of redemption and new beginnings no matter how dark the past. It is a reminder that we are not defined by what happens to us, but by how we respond, by the choices we make in the aftermath of tragedy, by our willingness to keep going and keep hoping and keep believing that better days are possible. Margaret could have given up that night on the road. Adam could have ridden past without stopping. Either choice would have been understandable given their circumstances, but they did not make those choices. They made the harder choices, the braver choices, the choices that required them to risk hope and trust and vulnerability. And those choices made all the difference. So their story endures, passed down through generations, a family treasure more valuable than land or money or anything material. It is the story of where they came from, how they survived, what they built together. It is the foundation on which everything else rests. And it begins simply, powerfully, with a storm and a stranger and a choice to stop and help someone in desperate need. Everything else, all the love and family and happiness that followed, grew from that single moment of compassion on a dark and stormy night in Wyoming Territory in 1882. The lonely rancher gave shelter to a scarred woman, and she became the best thing that ever happened to him. Together, they built a life worth remembering, a love worth celebrating, a legacy worth preserving. And that, in the end, is all any of us can hope for: to love and be loved, to build something good, to leave the world a little better than we found it, to be remembered with gratitude and affection by those who come after. Adam and Margaret Jensen achieved all of that and more. Their story is complete, their ending happy, their legacy secure. They lived, they loved, they built a family and a future. They survived darkness and found light. They were everything to each other, and that was more than enough. The end.